Evolutionary Astrologer Bryan Colter here for your horoscope report for the upcoming full moon in Gemini, which occurs on December 11th at 9:12 p.m. Pacific time. And this is a fun full moon. You know, Gemini has a fun energy to it, a playful energy. It's connective. It's communicative. It likes to explore. Okay, and this is a beautiful full moon to be happening during the holiday season, because holidays are very connective as we spend time with our loved ones. But December as a whole, I call the quiet before the storm, or the calm before the storm being the impending Saturn-Pluto alignment that happens on January 12th of next year. Of course, they've been dancing in the sky throughout all of 2019, the major event of 2019, but this is all hitting a maximum pulse in January. So, you know, all the astrologers of the world are paying close attention to what happens in January. So now we're just enjoying a bit of respite, a little bit of celebration, and spending time with our family. It's a pretty uneventful month, I would say, overall, astrologically. Before we get to the Gemini full moon, let's talk about the big event of December, which was Jupiter entering a new sign. It entered Capricorn on December 2nd. It only goes into a new sign about once a year, so it's a big deal. So the old astrologers called Jupiter the greater benefic, the so-called lucky planet. Not always true. But from the evolutionary astrology perspective, we'll definitely discuss when luck can arise with Jupiter. Now, my intention here is to talk about the personal meaning of Jupiter going through the sign of the sea goat as it affects each one of us. Jupiter leaving the sign of Sagittarius and entering Capricorn has a distinctly different feel to it. Now, signs flavor a planet with certain values or motivations. And the motivations of Sagittarius is a very, live in the moment, have wide-ranging experience. Sagittarius is a bit of a risk taker, pretty adventurous, and really the evolutionary path of Sagittarian energy is to make really interesting mistakes and learn from them. Capricorn, however, doesn't like making mistakes. It likes to think ahead. It likes to plan. It likes to plod along. It likes to have, big picture sort of ideas and then cultivate strategies to attain those ideas, always keeping their eye on the prize. And of course, from Sagittarian's point of view, Capricorn can seem pretty boring, but Capricorn doesn't see it that way. It's not boring to them. It builds dignity and integrity, and they're all about the long view. Okay, Sagittarius typically more about the short view. Capricorn is opposite of that. Capricorn loves big projects. Loves to keep the eye on the prize, to accomplish that great work, to paint that masterpiece, so to speak. So the joy of the long view. Now, with Jupiter, Jupiter from the evolutionary astrology perspective it's the faith builder. Wants us to have more faith in ourselves. Jupiter says to us, you're stronger than you think you are. Okay? So asking yourself the question, the very Jupiter question, how have I settled for so little? How have I been underestimating myself? The process of confidence building is Jupiter's domain. Jupiter is known as the king of the gods. Jupiter wants you to embody more king energy, to take up some space. Not the pompous or arrogant king, but the good king, the jolly king, who has faith in their abilities and high aspirations. Now, with Jupiter and Capricorn here, the idea of, how do we work with this energy to expand our consciousness? Applying that question, how have I been underestimating myself? Tie in Capricorn now for the goals of 2020 for us, because Jupiter's going to be in Capricorn throughout all of 2020. It's really about setting a goal that's truly worthy of you, but will also take relentless focus and hard work. And the great prize for that hard work is more integrity and more pride and self-respect and dignity. What kind of worthy goal? Well, that's a good question, and that can be answered by looking at your own birth chart and seeing where Capricorn is in your chart. Then you'll have an idea of where Jupiter will be transiting through your own chart for the coming year. It's more complicated than that, how it's affecting other planets in your chart, etc. It gets pretty complex, but just by knowing what house it'll be in will point your nose in the right direction. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, we immediately think of, goals and aspirations, career, money, that sort of thing. But it can just as easily be, a spiritual goal or a psychological goal. There can be other ways to accomplish truly great works, and knowing the house it's in can be very helpful. This is going to be the overarching theme for 2020 for a lot of us, not just because Jupiter's in Capricorn, but it will also be next to Saturn in the sky. And of the alignments next year, 2020, we have that Saturn-Pluto at the very beginning. But besides that, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that happens at the end of 2020 and then through most of it leading up to the end of 2020 is going to be the big event. And of course, Saturn rules Capricorn. So everything I'm talking about here with Jupiter and Capricorn is just intensified tremendously by Capricorn's ruler, in a cosmic dance with Jupiter next year. And this is a good segue to a shameless plug here, because I'm currently offering personal horoscopes for 2020, mostly focused on this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. It's a half-hour pre-recorded session. It's only $81. And if you're interested, contact me from the link below. So the great prize for the great work is great dignity and integrity. Capricorn loves that. And if you apply that Jupiter question, how have I been underestimating myself? And pick that goal worthy of you, and then take practical steps towards making it, put in that blood, sweat, and tears, you will be rewarded by the jolly Jupiter. We can correlate Jupiter nicely with Santa Claus. 'Tis the season to invoke that archetype. The greater benefic, the lucky planet, so-called. Well, the luck happens when you're working with Jupiter instead of against it. And then as you do this, as you move forward with a heart-centered faith in yourself and a goal in mind, the law of attraction happens. Things fall into place. The right people show up, and eerie circumstances and synchronicities abound. And it's a beautiful thing. Now, turning our attention to this Gemini full moon. What does it feel like? Which is a good question, because the moon represents our emotional worlds and our subjective reality and feelings. Well, with Gemini, it feels a bit restless. It feels curious. It feels exploratory. So you have, it's Sagittarian season, the sun's in Sagittarius, the moon's opposite the sun in Gemini, fire and air signs, has that kinetic energy. They thrive off of each other. And that's what Sagittarius and Gemini have in common. They're the opposite side of the same coin. And what they have in common is wanting to have fresh experience, wanting to explore. Gemini is an air sign. It's more on the mental plane. It's the sign of ideas. So this is a perfect time for fresh perspectives, fresh ideas, and even a fresh perception of reality. Because although Gemini is the sign of communication, underlying communication is thought and ideas, and underlying thought and ideas is perception. So there will be a lot of exploration, probably mentally, with that restlessness and that curiosity, but also, geographically potentially, because there's a lot of traveling energy here as well. And of course, a lot of us are going to be traveling to see our families. Gemini, the sign of communication. So a lot of connection. Of course, communication is a two-way street. So it's a good time for open-mindedness through communication, with the desire to be, open my perception of reality. We all have unique perspectives to share through our own observations. So when you're connecting with family and friends during this holiday season, sit down and explore through ideas. Mind wars is not, really on the agenda here. It's just about open connection. It's like whatever we perceive reality to be, whatever we believe reality to be, it's not quite that. And Gemini energy is constantly moving around, wanting to have a clearer perception of what that reality is. And through communication, open-minded, open-ended communication, and an honoring of each of our own individual belief systems, we can learn from each other. And this is the perfect time to do this. So I'm focusing here on communication with others because I think, most of us are going to be around a lot of other people over the holidays, which is great. But even by yourself, having conversations with yourself, trying to have a clear perception of reality. This is the time of thoughts and thinking and contemplating about our place in the universe, because we can connect Gemini to Sagittarius, the philosopher, asking the big questions in life. Like, why are we all here? What is this all about? Where am I headed? Now that question, where am I headed, can be tied in quite nicely with this Jupiter in Capricorn connected to the worthy goal of you. And I'll say some more things about that in a minute. But just getting into a place within yourself where you can ask yourself questions and mine for a specific resource, which is your own threads of curiosity. You're looking for new threads of curiosity. That's a part of Gemini too. And when you find that thread, if you pull on it and if you follow it, what is the great prize of following that thread? But it is a clear perception of reality, because that thread will take you in a new direction that you haven't gone before. That'll be exciting and invigorating for you. And you will learn. That's the key word connecting Gemini and Sagittarius, is learning. Full moons are a point of culmination, the time of harvesting. So what are we harvesting now? Ideas. And this will also be supported by the planet Neptune, because Neptune is in what's called a square aspect to the moon, and of course also the sun, since it's a full moon, which is a sun opposite moon. So Neptune creating a T-square, so-called, and the square is a hard angle. It's 90 degrees, and it implies friction here. And Neptune, one of my favorite planets to talk about, is it's a very mystical planet. It's about God consciousness. It's about the evolution of our own consciousness, about spirituality. It's about meditation. So Neptune is saying through this square, meditation's really good for us now. Yet the square, a friction-based aspect, saying it's not so easy. Why is that? Because when the mind is very Geminian, let's say, which is to say very active, it's really hard to force ourselves to pop a squat and just sit still for 5 minutes, with that exploratory energy, wanting to flit about, wanting to go to the next thing, wanting to have fun, wanting to have playful banter. And Neptune saying, let's just take a moment. Let's explore this region of our thoughts and ideas from a different level of consciousness. But the square to Neptune is saying it's not so easy to calm the mind, to quiet the mind, to quell the riot inside. But you can do it, and there's benefit to be had from doing it. So when working with the square in this way, it's a good idea to bring in some tools to help you relax the mind. And one of my favorites is called binaural beats. You can just hop on YouTube or Google or whatever, type in binaural beats, and it's basically music, but you need to wear headphones because each tone is a little different in each ear. And what that does is balances the energy of both hemispheres of the brain, so you can sink into that deep meditative state rather quickly. And even if you have that overactive mind, if you just focus on your breath for a couple minutes, you'll feel yourself sink. Now, meditation, in this case, meditation is often dished up in a very rigorous, structured way. Like thou shalt not have a thought, just sit there and just don't think, just focus on your breath, and just focus your concentration. So there can be a lot of rules. It can be pretty strict. But we got to keep in mind, this is a more Geminian form of meditation, which is more fun and exploratory. So yes, you got to take some time to get to that relaxed state. And you can tell you're in a light or deep trance. It might take a few minutes to get there, but the training wheels for the novice meditator, aka binaural beats, will help you to sink into that meditative state rather quickly. And you can tell you're there because it'll almost feel like your body's asleep, but your mind's still awake. Almost like I can tell when I'm there because I can't even really feel my hands anymore. Like sometimes if I'm holding this mudra here, that's a pretty common one, I'll be in this meditative state and I'll be like, wow, am my fingers still touching? I can't tell. The body is asleep, but the mind awake. That's when you can tell you're in deep trance. So you take some time to get there, and then you play with the Gemini energy. You play with your thoughts. You let the mind explore with visualization and imagery and just see where the thoughts take you. You're going to find some threads of curiosity there. I guarantee it. But you have to be in that right place, that deep trance. And we can focus this energy a little bit. Once you get there, once you get to that deep trance and you start this mind dancing, you start to play with the imagery and the thoughts in this very curious manner, then you can integrate what I was saying about Jupiter and Capricorn. Okay? But you can make it in a more playful way. I mean, the way I was describing Jupiter and Capricorn can seem a little boring, but you can have fun with it in this exercise. I love the idea on a full moon, setting a little time for yourself to have this meditation, to create your, this is words I don't really like, but New Year's resolution. And they're probably words I don't like because I epically failed at most of them I created for myself. But you can just call it a strong intention for the new year. I mean, we're entering into 2020, whole new decade. And we have this Jupiter and Capricorn now saying, set that worthy goal. So look to see where it's going through your house in your chart. Google what that house means, more or less, or hire a professional astrologer, And then in the meditation, Gemini explore through that house. It's like, okay, what does that mean? What does that area of my life look like right now? How might I be underestimating myself in that area of life? And then see what good ideas, what threads of curiosity you can create, and visualize what it would feel like to accomplish that goal by the end of next year. And in your meditation, you might have a little negative thought poke up, like, oh, you can't do that. Are you crazy? And then in a very detached observation sort of way, in a very curious, playful way, it's like, where did that thought come from? Why do I have that thought? That thought's holding me back. You don't want to condemn yourself, obviously, but just playfully poke at it and try to understand the source of that thought. And once you understand the source of that thought, you can go on to other ideas that are more positive. You're mining threads of curiosity and positivity to help establish a clarity of mind for you so that you can accomplish said goal. This is a beautiful way to do some dream engineering with some mind dancing so that we can take all these energies we're experiencing right now and harvest these fresh ideas and apply them to a worthy goal for yourself next year and work with the energy instead of against them. And that's the evolutionary intention, with the goal always being to expand our consciousness.